Hello, good evening and welcome to the Primetime Bulletin on Joy News here on Multi TV. Many thanks for joining us. Our top stories tonight: minority in Parliament accuses Information Minister of being economical with the truth about the status of the $3 billion loan expected from the China Development Bank. A new report by American research group Freedom House Incorporation ranks Ghana as the only country in Africa aside the island countries to have a free press. Meanwhile, human rights watchdog Amnesty International is urging government to commit itself to put the promotion of human rights at the core of its activities. Now, internet cafe operators threaten a nationwide demonstration if Vodafone goes ahead to implement its new cupping system. And thousands of mourners gather in Anambra for the funeral of the late renowned author Chinua Achebe. We have all these plus business, sports and showbiz coming up in a moment. In our very first story, human rights watchdog Amnesty International is calling on government of Ghana to commit itself to implementing a clear agenda on human rights and also ensure that human rights takes center stage in its political programs. The rights group also wants Ghana and other countries which still have capital punishment in their law books to completely abolish the law. This was contained in the State of the World Human Rights Report for 2013, which was launched in Accra today.
The death penalty, according to the report, has been imposed in several African countries, even though only a few actually implement it. 682 people were executed in 21 countries last year. In Ghana, though the law remains in our statute books and several criminals as a result are currently on death row, it is not applied. Hence, none of the 167 condemned criminals, 27 of whom were condemned last year, has been executed in the last 30 years.
Amnesty International, we believe that the death penalty is not the answer. It does not console the family of the victim. Even if we kill an armed robber because he has killed somebody, it's never consoled.
The amendment bill that will expunge capital punishment is currently before Parliament after an initial process to remove it expired with the dissolution of the previous Parliament which initiated it. In a statement read on behalf of the Information Minister, Mahama Yariga, he noted government has taken steps to ensure the death penalty was expunged from the country's statute books. Government is, however, asking Amnesty International to propose recommendations for persons who have suffered injustice at the hands of criminals.
Once the Constitutional Review Committee, that Constitutional Review Commission has approved, has said that the death penalty should be abolished in Ghana. Government has set up a body to implement those recommendations. But then there was a very important question I asked, that after abolishing the death penalty, what next?
In response to the question asked by Hola Senaya, who represented the Information Minister, Amnesty's country director proposed some alternative punishments for murderers.
There are other punishments which will be even more severe. For example, putting the person in prison is more severe than just killing him once and he's gone and he doesn't feel the pain anymore. But if he lives and feel the pain, he will remember what he has done. We should not be looking at waiting for the heinous crimes to be committed. We should be looking at what should we rather do to ensure that we do not have those crimes being committed.
The State of Human Rights 2013 report by Amnesty International also highlighted the increasing spate of violence against women and girls and the abuse of human rights in areas such as housing.
The minority in Parliament is accusing Information Minister Mahama Yariga of deceiving the public about the true status of the $3 billion Chinese loan. Last week, the minister told the press that government has sorted out every relevant document concerning the loan, indicating the facility was on its way to Ghana. But according to the minority, the minister is being economical with the truth.
The minority in Parliament raised concerns about the terms and conditions of the contract between the government of Ghana and the facilitators of the loan, the China Development Bank. According to them, it contradicts Section 18(7) of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, which restricts collateralization of oil revenues to debts that have to be paid within 10 years. The minority also raised concerns about the projected programs the loan facility will be used for, claiming there could be double payments for one project.
Government, in computing the various project costs, which amounted to 3 billion, used the price ceilings as they themselves quoted. And the total of these three projects came to $950 million. That is from 450 to $950 million. The question we posed then was, assuming we are able to execute these projects at least cost, that is 450 million, what happens to the unutilized components? The looseness of such broad banding certainly would create room for consultants and contractors to inflate the cost of the projects. Manifestly, this arrangement would create space for corruption and fraudulent manipulation of project costs, and the nation will not have value for money.
They were also concerned about Clause 3 of the Master Facility Agreement, MFA, which gave a ceiling of 60% minimum of contracts to the facilitator.
Our concern is that this minimum requirement means that potentially 100% of the contract could go to Chinese companies. And the agreement, if it happened that way, would not be breached. We wanted government to renegotiate this to say a maximum of 60%. Now, the question to raise in the face of this provision in the agreement, a minimum of 60% of the contracts should be awarded to Chinese companies. The question to ask is what happened to the much touted local content that this government has been sounding from rooftops. And we must not forget that this Chinese loan, the 3 billion loan, is purely a commercial loan, not a grant or even a concessional loan.
The minority called for value for money and accused the NDC majority of acquiring the loan facility in a manner which smacks of corruption. They are therefore requesting the finance minister to appear before the House when they reconvene next week for questioning.
We hereby serve notice to the Minister of Finance that he will be required to be in Parliament to answer why the gas contract is being executed, but the subsidiary agreement relating to the project has not come to Parliament for scrutiny and approval.
The minority maintained they are not against the loan, but are looking for value for money and accountability in the acquisition of the loan.
Ghana is currently the only country on the African continent where journalists have the freedom to go about their duties. That is according to a report by Freedom House Incorporation, a freedom of expression advocacy organization based in the United States.
The report highlights issues pertaining to press freedom in the past year based on a global survey of media independence, which rates the level of press freedom in 197 countries. Apart from the African islands, Cape Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, and Mauritius, Ghana is the only country on the African continent which was rated to have a free press.
For the West Africa region, we saw a number of very big positive and negative movements and trends. Mali obviously experienced a great decline in media freedom this past year in the region. It was one of the biggest worldwide over the last 10 years, very unfortunately. And the decline of Mali actually left Ghana in being in one of the best positions in the African continent in terms of media freedom. So right now Ghana is rated as the only free country in terms of press freedom on the African continent.
In spite of the high rating the country enjoyed for its press freedom, the report points to political influence and corruption among journalists as challenges that must be addressed. It also called for the passage of the Rights to Information Bill to make the freedom enjoyed by the press complete. Meanwhile, the Media Foundation for West Africa, in partnership with US-based Freedom House Incorporation, has initiated the West African Index project on freedom of expression for West Africa to assess the state of freedom of expression in the ECOWAS sub-region. Journalists from 15 ECOWAS member states are being trained on the methodology to be used in rating freedom of expression in their respective countries. Professor Kwame Kakari is the Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa.
The first object is to see if the governments are truly doing things that create conditions for citizens to express themselves in all the different areas freely. The second is that where there are problems or difficulties by citizens in exercising their freedom of expression rights, then the results will show those governments or those countries where the situation of freedom of expression is high or low. And then we hope that through the media, citizens will get to know the status of freedom of expression in their countries and use the results to advocate for more freedoms for themselves.
Professor Kakari tells Joy News a pilot survey will be conducted in 5 African countries after the training to test the credibility and accessibility of the index before launching a full-scale regional assessment.
General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, has disputed claims of overvoting at some polling station by the petitioner's star witness, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. According to the NDC scribe who took the witness stand today, there were no recorded cases of overvoting at all the 26,000 polling stations across the country.
It is only where there is the number of votes in the box exceed the number of people who are entitled to vote. That is where you have overvoting, and that is what leads to automatic cancellation. Now, my Lord, it is entirely possible that when a voter approaches a polling station and he takes the presidential ballot paper, he ends up putting it in the parliamentary ballot paper and vice versa. That will lead to a situation where when you open the box, you will see that one of the boxes, the presidential ballot box, you will see that the number of ballots in the box are more than the number of ballots issued.
According to Asiedu Nketia, this was the first time he was hearing about overvoting in his 34-year political career. He also described as clerical errors the failure of the EC officials to enter numbers in the columns provided on the pink sheets meant to indicate the number of ballots issued. The petitioners had argued that the failure to record the number of ballots issued was one of the several mechanisms used by the NDC and the Electoral Commission to rig the elections. But giving evidence in court, Johnson Asiedu Nketia reiterated that the Electoral Commission took stock of about 400 polling stations across the country where the biometric verification machines failed to function on election day on December 7, 2012. And based on a review in that regard, voting continued on December 8 with fully functional biometric verification equipment. He thus questioned the basis of the allegations by the petitioners. He also indicated that he disagreed with the petitioner's claim that President John Mahama, the first respondent, ordered the Electoral Commission to allow voters to cast their ballots without being verified by the biometric equipment. He described the president's intervention as a legitimate appeal rather than a command to the second respondent to flout the law as averred by the petitioners.
With regard to the rogue polling station, he indicated that the stations are known, they have listed them, and they were surprised that the petitions are saying so because they were represented by their polling agents who signed the documents and didn't protest. With regard to the serial numbers, he made an outstanding statement that as far as he's concerned, serial numbers are not the most important identification mark for a polling station. That what's important is the polling station code, the name, another identifying person.
Then came the attempt to tender a pink sheet on the polling station in Asukwa. This document had been identified when Dr. Bawumia was in the box. According to Mr. Chikata, they were seeking to tender this document to demonstrate our bad faith in bringing this petition. We took objection to the tendering of the document on two main grounds. One, that it was a document that had not been exhibited as directed by the court in its order, in the directions he gave on the 2nd of April. And secondly, also, that in their pleadings, where they claim they allege bad faith, they had not given particulars of the bad faith they are claiming as demanded by the rules.
Proceedings have meanwhile been adjourned to Tuesday, May 28.
A section of the Ghana Commercial Bank Tower at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle in Accra was this morning nearly gutted by fire. This followed a leakage on one of the floors. The chief operating officer of the bank, Adai Mensah, however, assured the situation was under control. The alarm followed the flooding of the 5th floor, which resulted from a leakage of one of the taps in the tower, which soaked some electrical appliances. For fear of causing a fire outbreak in the edifice, the fire alarm was raised. Personnel of the fire service who arrived at the scene on time managed to evacuate the staff and customers who were in the building at the time for business transactions to prevent any casualty. We've been joined on the line now by Deputy Public Relations Officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, Prince Billy Anaglate. Hello, good evening to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Is everything all right at the GCB Tower after this scare?
Yes, exactly. They called in the electricians that came to rectify what happened to some of their wires. What actually happened was that because of the water that caused bridging of the electrical system, some of the wires started to smolder. So the smoldering gave out a lot of smoke that triggered off the alarm system. And it was actually not a real fire. So when the electrician came, they were able to remove those wires that got melted because of the smoldering, and then they rectified the system.
So you can confirm as we speak that such a situation should not happen anymore?
Well, this is probably a human factor, because if somebody should forget to leave a tap on, or if there is a faulty pipe system that could give us that sort of flooding, that water could spill from a source to a point where there are electrical equipment, definitely a problem of that nature could happen. The only thing I would say is that we all need to be careful with whatever we do. We all need to properly assess the premises to ensure that certain things are corrected before we leave the premises, if really we want to prevent some of these things. So I cannot be here and say that it will not happen again once those people in the premises do not take safety measures to prevent that.
Now, before we let you go, is it fair to say that the fire service has not done enough as far as public education is concerned? Because this is coming just on the back of a number of fire outbreaks in the country. Wouldn't you say that you must have done enough so that people are much more sensitized, so we don't take some things for granted?
Well, if you come to education, fire safety education, there are two, components to this particular education. One is the fire service giving out the education, preparing themselves for the education. The other aspect is for the public availing themselves to receive the education. You agree with me that even the fire service almost always are at vantage points. We are at the markets, we are at the lorry parks, we are in the industries, we are even on the communities, working from one house to the other to educate the people. But it is unfortunate that the very people that we want to protect, the very people that we want them to know the rudiments of the fire safety, are not readily available to receive some of this education. So yes, I would say that the education has not been taken to the maximum because the other aspects who are at the receiving end are not readily available to receive it.
All right. Many thanks to you, sir, for your time here on Joy News on Multi TV. You're still watching the Primetime News here. My name is Gifty Andopia. We return after this break. Please stay. Welcome back. Many thanks for staying with us. There were reports of an earth tremor this afternoon in the eastern region. The tremor was reported to have occurred between Odoglase and Oteplolo. Director of the Geological Services Department, Ajay Dodu, joins us on the line with some updates on the situation. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, madam.
Yes, thanks for your time. Now, when exactly did the tremor happen? When was it felt?
Thank you. It occurred at about 1:17 p.m. 0.9 kilometers from Oduglase, near Otepulu, in the eastern region of Ghana.
So, was it a severe tremor that registered on this scale, on this Richter scale?
It was 4.2 on the Richter scale. And this time around, because we are using the digital seismic equipment, modern system, it recorded the depth at about 1.2 kilometers. That is where the earthquake or the tremor emanated from. That was the origin of the tremor.
So what are the implications?
Well, we are happy that it was a tremor. And nevertheless, we have to be there to be able to assess if there was any damage at all. We've not been able to be there because of the time, and of course we have to put certain things in order before we'll be able to visit there tomorrow morning.
Okay, so would you be able to tell us how the people there are feeling? How are they scared?
Yes, presently it will be a little bit difficult and premature since we have not been there physically, but we've had some calls that an impact have been felt around that place. Okay.
Before we let you go, did you record any tremor in any other place apart from these places that you mentioned?
Oh, since last year, 20th October, when the installation was carried out or was completed, we've recorded 100 tremors. Ranging from 1.2 on the Richter scale to the present 4.2, and the 4.2 being the highest. But because, as I said, we are using a very modern system, even 1.2 can be recorded. Earlier, we were not able to do that. And the areas we are receiving we are recording the epicenters are on the Ekwefim Togo range. Nyanyano is part of it, Wija, Makati Hill, Akosombo, Shai Hills, along the Volta Lake, and up to the Volta region. And in fact, we have even been recording minor tremors, which earlier on we were not able to record. It means that the tremors were occurring, but the earlier equipment being used were not so sensitive to be able
detect
to
them.
Recording.
Right. Right. Many thanks for your time, sir, here on Joy News. Now, moving on with other stories, contractors working on Get Fund project may have to wait a while longer to get paid, as government says it is awaiting parliamentary approval for the new Get Fund payment formula. This was disclosed by Information Minister Mahama Ayariga at today's daily press briefing with the Presidential Press Corps at the Flagstaff House. Addressing today's media briefing, Mahama Ayariga said discussions were still ongoing for the sale of Merchant Bank to First Rand Bank of South Africa. On government indebtedness to contractors working on Get Fund projects, the Information Minister admitted government was challenged as it was still waiting for Parliament to approve the Get Fund payment formula.
There are a number of contracts that are at different stages of completion awarded by the Get Fund and also the Ministry of Education. Part of the problem was that we were waiting to approve the Get Fund formula, and it was one of the reasons why we did the emergency recall of Parliament so that the Get Fund formula will be approved, and then that would then provide the basis for payments to be effected. But as you know, it is coming from the VAT proceeds. So as and when they get resources coming in from VAT, then they are also able to effect the payments. GET Fund has a way of scheduling payments on a first-come, first-served basis, and that is what is holding them back. But basically, it's a question of how much money is also getting to them from the VAT receipts.
He also said difficulties being encountered in making such payments are part of the reasons why government is vehemently pushing for reviews in revenue mobilization. He also debunked assertions that the president's directive to review procurement laws to the advantage of local meter manufacturers was mere rhetoric. President John Mahama this morning departed Accra for the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa to participate in activities marking the 50th anniversary of formation of the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. The president left at about 7:30 a.m. Thursday morning in the company of the First Lady Lordina Mahama and his Executive Secretary Dr. Raymond Atuguba. Vice President Kwesi Bekunye Mr. Arthur, who will be acting in his stead, was at the Jubilee launch of the Kotoka International Airport to bid him farewell. Also present at the airport to see the president off were the Chief of Defense Staff, Rear Admiral Matthew Kwashi, Defense Minister Mark Boyongo, Deputy Foreign Minister Thomas Kwate, and the Secretary to Cabinet Roger Asomwini. 25th May will mark the 50th anniversary of the African Union, a continental organization aimed at bridging the gaps on the continent towards achieving a united state of Africa. As part of our series in the run-up to the day, we'll take a look at the symbol and anthem of the Union. Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation.
The current flag of the African Union was adopted at its 14th ordinary section of the Assemblies of Heads of State and Government, which took place in Addis Ababa on 31st January 2010. It contains a green background symbolizing hope of Africa and 53 gold stars to represent the member states. However, South Sudan became the 54th member state on 27th July 2011. The previous flag of the African Union was composed of a broad green horizontal strip at the top, followed by a narrow band of gold. Below was a broad white strip bearing the then emblem of the African Union at its center, followed by a narrow gold band and broad green strip at the bottom. The color green symbolized African hopes and aspiration to unity. The gold stands for African wealth and bright future. White represented the purity of Africa's desire to have genuine friends throughout the world, and the red was for the African solidarity and the bloodshed for the liberation of Africa. The emblem of the African Union features a golden boundary-less map of Africa inside two concentric circles, with stylish palm leaves shooting up on either side of the outer circle. The plain map of Africa without boundaries signifies African unity. The gold circle symbolizes Africa's wealth and bright future, whilst the green circle stands for Africa hopes and aspiration. The palm leaves shooting up on either side of the outer circles stands for peace, and the red rings at the base of the emblem stand for Africa solidarity and the bloodshed for the liberation of Africa. And finally, there is the AU anthem, which makes a call for all Africans to unite. Sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life as we celebrate 50 years of African Union. Let us remember the need for a united and stronger Africa.
Let us all unite and celebrate together.
Time now for some business. Now, some internet cafe operators have registered their displeasure about a new pricing system introduced by Vodafone Ghana Limited, which disallows them to access unlimited internet data. They are therefore threatening to embark on a nationwide demonstration on the 4th of June if the company insists on implementing the new capping system. Abigail Adumakoenchi has more.
Vodafone Ghana Limited is the sole internet provider for all internet cafes in the country. The cafes, per the nature of their business, use internet data based on speed and price their clients per the time spent surfing the internet. Hitherto, Vodafone offered unlimited broadband data to internet cafes, which remains convenient for operators. The company, however, introduced the cap system in November last year, which operators resisted and petitioned them for a pricing renegotiation. Vodafone Ghana responded to the petition, stating that users will have to pay 180 cedis a month to access unlimited data at a reduced speed of 12 megabytes per second from an initial 20 megabytes per second, which cost 200 cedis. Just after 5 months, Vodafone has introduced a different cap system which cancels cafe operators unlimited access to internet data, and the operators are unhappy about the turn of events.
They are capping even the 180 customers. But this was not what you told us earlier on. You said that if we pay 180, we are not going to be capped. It is 180 and it is unlimited for the month. They see 500 gig to be so big, but you see, unlimited is unlimited. If you tell me that you are giving me an unlimited service for 1 month, please give me unlimited service. Even if you will change it, don't do it in the middle of the month when I have paid my money and then I don't know anything. All I hear is my thing is used up. If he had told me at the beginning of the month when I went there to pay, maybe I would have decided to stop.
They have threatened to embark on a nationwide demonstration on June 4 if Vodafone insists on implementing the new capping system.
Made inquiries at Vodafone and they tell us they intend not to revise any policy. So all we intend to do now is to inform all stakeholders as to what the issue is and what is going on. And if nothing is done about this situation, we'll only end up going to the streets and continually going to the street all across the country. Before I forget, Vodafone had actually caused the arrest of all of our members, and this situation is making most of the guys scared about even going to contend them.
They are also agitated over persistent unannounced changes in the pricing of Vodafone internet services, adding that it is a conscious abuse of their monopoly.
They made us sign an undertaking that time that they were at least, this is a 2-year contract of 180 a month paid in advance for an unlimited service. So I don't understand why just 5 months down the line, without any information, you change your billing plan. They have cafe, and that is our suspicion, that they want to collapse all the local cafes so that they can be running theirs. Else, why must you cap me?
We feel that we have to contend Vodafone because this is breach of trust, and we also see it as a means of trying to abuse the monopolistic situation they find themselves in. This, they are going to increase, or they have already increased prices excessively high, a situation that is going to cause retail prices to go high. That is going to widen the data or internet penetration of this country, and we are not comfortable with that.
Meanwhile, Vodafone Ghana Limited has refused to comment on the issue. Joy News will, however, keep viewers updated. Abigail Adumakoenchi for Joy News.
It appears the Accra Metropolitan Assembly's directive for markets in the metropolis to be opened at 6 a.m. and closed at 6 p.m. is not being strictly followed. As Joy News' Emmanuel Ante discovered today, some of the security personnel in charge of the market opened the gates to the market before the stipulated 6 a.m.
The Makola Market is one of the oldest and vibrant markets in Accra Central Business District, but at about 5:30 Thursday morning, when the news team got to the Makola Market, the gates were already opened, and it appears the security personnel were using their own discretion in opening the gates to the market.
You see how the weather be. Sometimes we open 5 to 6 because according to the weather. When the weather is not clear, we just open 6 to 6. But when we see that the weather is clear, that's we open 5 to 6.
And the traders seem to like the approach adopted by the security personnel. The directive by AMA is intended to help curb the recent fire outbreaks which affected 2 major markets in Accra metropolis.
A national interpretation guideline on good agricultural practices has been launched in Accra to aid exporters in meeting the required global standards to export agricultural produce. Farmers who fail to comply with the guideline will not be certified to export their product.
The agriculture sector accounts for over 30% of GDP and employs more than half of the workforce, mainly small landholders. The sector remains a major source of exports and fiscal earnings. Revenues from horticultural exports, for instance, hovers around $60 to $75 million. To enhance Ghana's agricultural exports, a local interpretation of the global guidance for good agricultural practices has been launched.
We've observed that depending upon whoever comes to do the audit and depending upon where the person was trained, to look at those requirements vary. So we thought that there was a need to interpret those standards into our local condition. And based again, we are trying to make it easy for farmers to meet those requirements. Yeah, if you don't follow it, then it means you are not meeting the requirement. And once you are non-compliant, you will not receive a certificate.
Apart from the interpretation guidelines, government's own export, marketing and quality awareness project is also to ensure farmers stick to global standards.
The export marketing and quality awareness project, for example, has sensitized over 6,000 farmers in 4 regions of Ghana, that is Greater Accra, Central, Eastern and Volta. They have gone a step further by providing critical training and coaching to some farmers. For example, 4 farmer groups for the farmers to be able to conform to this certification and have this certification to get them the needed skills and knowledge to be able to put in the needed agronomic practices that will enable them to raise their productivity and quality of their fruits to meet the international standards.
Minister for Food and Agriculture Clement Kofi Homado emphasized the need for Ghana to rely on agricultural exports for growth and pledged government's commitment to implement the guidelines.
We have found oil, but we all know that oil is not the only answer to stabilizing our macroeconomy. We must continue to rely on agricultural products and their exports into the international marketing system to generate the necessary foreign exchange to stabilize this economy. So we find ourselves in a situation where standards certified by national institutions alone cannot move agricultural products in the international system. We also have to meet industry standards. It is therefore important that my ministry will continue to support your efforts.
Ghana is among 36 countries globally to have the local guidelines approved.
The Minister of Finance and Economic Planning said says the country's economy remains strong despite deficits recorded during the first 4 months of 2013. According to him, total expenditure for the period reached 9,674 million Ghana cedis against the total revenue of 6,281 Ghana cedis due to high cost of measures government is undertaking to enhance the public sector. Setekwe was addressing the press on the state of the country's economy.
Some of the deficits that we are recording is the result of a paradigm shift in making provision to cover these, what is expected to be, what is expected to be completed, which is a superior basis for preparing your budget. If we reflect this, it doesn't mean that there is a weakness in the economy and we are unable to sustain the economy into the medium term. We started implementing the single spine in 2009, a policy that was put in place and approved in 2008. It has been 3 years since 2010, and we have briefed Ghanaians periodically on the effects of the single spine.
Now, in international news, thousands of mourners attended the funeral of renowned Nigerian author Chinua Achebe in his hometown in Anambra State. Achebe's body arrived back in Nigeria on Wednesday from the United States, where he died in March at the age of 82. I beg your pardon.
Relatives and officials were at Enugu Airport in southern Nigeria as the coffin was lowered from the plane. Achebe is widely regarded as the founding father of African literature in English. His 1958 debut novel, Things Fall Apart, which dealt with the impact of colonialism in Africa, has sold more than 10 million copies. The writer and academic went on to write more than 20 works, some fiercely critical to politicians and what he described as a failure of leadership in Nigeria. He had been living in the US since 1990 after a car crash left him partially paralyzed and in a wheelchair, returning to Nigeria infrequently. Much of what he abhorred was on full display at the service: political patronage and the trapping of power. Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan and Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama flew in by helicopter to attend the service at the packed Anglican Church in Ogidi. Thousands of mourners followed proceedings through huge marquees erected outside. Achebe's body was buried near his family's home in Ogidi, a small town in the hills of Anambra State, later on Thursday.
May his soul rest in peace.
Time now for an update from the world of sports. My name is Nyako Fismatabi. First up, the Black Satellites will embark on a 2-week pre-tournament campaign in Switzerland ahead of the FIFA World Youth Championship. The locally based players have been training in Accra for the past 2 weeks for the tournament in Turkey, which begins next month.
Head coach Salah Tete is expecting some invited foreign-based players to join the team before their departure and is confident that this generation of players have what it takes to make Ghana proud in Turkey. Management Committee Chairman of the Satellites, George Afriyie, tells Joy Sports that all is set for the training camp of the lads in Switzerland, as the country has all the conditions the side wants as far as the training base for the team is concerned.
Well, away from football to swimming, the Black Dolphins have arrived in the country after taking part in an invitational competition in Germany. With as many clubs from around the globe invited to take part in the event, the pressure was on the lads to make the nation proud. Joy Sports caught up with the victorious swimmers and officials when they touched down at the Kotoka International Airport last night.
I'm happy to say that at the end of the competition, we had 25 medals, made up of 11 gold, 8 silver and 6 bronze. I want to say that we are very happy, and we believe that this is only the beginning. We are going to plunge straight back into training, because that's what swimmers ought to do. And we want to use this opportunity to thank everybody. First, we thank the Lord Almighty. We thank the minister who came to visit us and encouraged us. We thank Phase 2, who gave us some sponsorship. Unilever gave us a little bit. And anybody and everybody who has in any way contributed to our success, we say a big thank you.
Well, we also say congratulations to the boys. Before we go, though, this year's UEFA Champions League final between German giants Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund comes off this Saturday at Wembley in England. And of course, the events team of Multimedia is organizing a huge outdoor carnival for you. So do make sure that you don't miss out on this outdoor carnival at the Aviation Social Center. It's there for you to enjoy the excitement of the league final. So that's it for sports. Gifty comes back shortly with the latest from Showbiz.
Welcome now to Showbiz. Now known in real life as John Okafor, Mr. Ibu is an exclusive interview. In an exclusive interview, has been advising his fellow men who are bachelors to find themselves wives, as according to him, it is important for every man to find his other half as designed by God.
Mr. Ibu, among other things, also talks about his looks, which he says could have been better, but cannot blame God.
If I get where they change face, like God did something, well, you can never question God, because all those things are permanent. If there's a way somebody can go and change his hand, or change legs, change nose. For my face, the only thing that is surprising me is the nose. The size is bigger. God was not forced. God was being pushed to use materials, the remnants of the materials, to create some people. This man told them, "Don't worry, on Monday we'll start." Hi! The materials are mine. They were worrying because, okay, go and use it. Let me see what you can do on Monday. Let me see your production. That's it.
He says ever since he arrived in the country, managing his large following in Ghana has been such a challenge. Having described his preferred physical appearance of a woman, he went on to offer this piece of advice to his fellow men.
Who are not married like you, will go and look for somebody to marry. Don't be stupid. And then for...
And this is where we end the Primetime Bulletin here on Joy News on Multi TV. Our top stories tonight: minority in Parliament accuses Information Minister of being economical with the truth about the status of the $3 billion loan expected from the China Development Bank. A new report by American research group Freedom House Incorporation ranks Ghana as the only country in Africa aside the island countries to have a free press. Meanwhile, human rights watchdog Amnesty International is urging governments to commit itself to put the promotion of human rights at the core of its activities. Internet cafe operators threaten a nationwide demonstration if Vodafone goes ahead to implement its new capping system. And thousands of mourners gather in Anambra for the funeral of the late renowned author Chinua Achebe. Many thanks for your time. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. Good evening.